I won millions in the lottery, $2 million, and decided not to tell anyone. First, I asked my family for help to test their loyalty. Everyone refused, thinking I was an old fool on a meager pension. Only one person offered a helping hand, unaware of the win. I least expected help from this person, but now they will get everything. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. The lottery slip trembled slightly in my weathered hands as I carefully filled in the familiar numbers. 7, 14, 23, 31, 42. Each digit carried a memory: Margaret's birthday, Tatum's, Finnegan's, Roderick's, our wedding anniversary. The bonus number 18 for Ellis, my late brother's boy. $20, same as every month for the past 3 years. Dad, what's wrong with you? Tatum's voice cut through the autumn air before her car door even slammed shut. I folded the ticket carefully, sliding it into my shirt pocket as her heels clicked angrily across the wet driveway. The screen door burst open without a knock. I saw you at Miller's Corner store. She stood in my kitchen doorway, mascara smudged, her salon uniform wrinkled. $20, Dad? 20 whole dollars while I'm canceling appointments because I can't afford gas? Good afternoon to you too, sweetheart. I remained seated at my kitchen table, hands folded. She yanked the lottery ticket from my pocket before I could react. These stupid numbers. You think you're going to win? You think some magical fairy is going to make us rich? Give that back, Tatum. No. She waved it above her head like evidence in a courtroom. Do you know I owe $18.50 for Kayla and Mason's school supplies? $18.50. But here you are, throwing away $20 on Fantasyland. I stood slowly, my knees protesting. I've given you $3,200 this year. Finnegan got $4,800. Roderick, $2,100. You want me to count every grocery bill, every electric payment, every emergency car repair? Her face flushed red. That's different. That's family helping family. And this is my money helping my hope. Your hope? She laughed bitterly. Dad, you're 68 years old. You live on a pension and Social Security. Every dollar counts. Every dollar I earn. My voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Every dollar I saved, working double shifts at the factory while you kids were growing up. Every dollar I chose not to spend on myself so you could have decent clothes and school lunches. She clutched the ticket tighter. I'm not asking for much. You're asking for everything. The words came out harder than I intended. You want my lottery ticket money. Finnegan wants my investment decisions. Roderick wants my emergency fund. When do I get to want something? Tatum's eyes narrowed. What you want is stupid. What I want is mine. She stared at me for a long moment, the kitchen clock ticking between us. Outside, rain began pattering against the window. Finally, she threw the ticket onto the table. Fine, waste your money. But don't come crying to me when you're eating cat food because you spent your last 20 on pipe dreams. The front door slammed so hard the coffee cups rattled in their saucers. Through the window, I watched her Toyota spin gravel as she reversed out of my driveway. The red taillights disappeared around the corner, leaving only the sound of rain and my own breathing. I picked up the lottery ticket, smoothed out the creases her fingers had made. The numbers looked back at me, my family's birthdays, the dates that once meant celebration and cake and laughter. Now they felt like accusations. 5 hours later, as autumn darkness settled over Milford, I sat alone with a cup of coffee gone cold. The lottery ticket lay on the table beside yesterday's newspaper. That's when my phone began to ring. The soup was just starting to bubble when the phone rang. I'd been stirring the chicken noodles slowly, watching steam rise from the pot, trying not to think about Tatum's words echoing through my empty house. The caller ID showed Finnegan's number. Hey, Dad. His voice carried that careful tone he used when he thought I needed managing. Tatum called me earlier. She's pretty upset. I set down the wooden spoon and leaned against the counter. I imagine she is. She said you bought another lottery ticket today. $20. That's correct. A pause. I could hear keyboard clicking in the background. He was still at his office downtown, probably working late on some project that would prove how indispensable he was to his company. Dad, we've talked about this before. $20 might not seem like much, but it adds up. That's $240 a year. Over 5 years, that's $1,200. Mathematics was always your strong suit, son. I'm being serious. His voice sharpened. You're on a fixed income. Every expense should be carefully considered. I gripped the phone tighter. Like the $7,300 in credit card debt you couldn't cover last year? The debt I paid off so your credit wouldn't be ruined? Silence. Then, that was different. That was an investment opportunity that didn't pan out. And this is my investment in hope. Hope doesn't pay bills, Dad. Neither did your cryptocurrency venture, or your friend's restaurant, or that multi-level marketing scheme you swore was going to make you rich. Those were calculated risks based on market research. No. I turned off the burner under the soup. Those were gambles. Just like this lottery ticket. The only difference is I admit what mine is. Finnegan sighed dramatically. Look, I'm not trying to control your life. I'm trying to help you make smart financial decisions. Mom always said, don't. The word came out sharper than I intended. Don't use your mother to justify treating me like a child. That's not what I'm doing, isn't it? You call me up, lecture me about $20, while I send you $400 every month for your so-called emergencies. When was the last time you asked how I'm doing? When was the last time you visited just to visit? Another pause. The keyboard clicking stopped. I care about you, Dad. We all do. That's why we worry when we see you making poor choices. Poor choices. I stared at the lottery ticket on my refrigerator, held there by a magnet shaped like a sunflower, Margaret's favorite. $20 for the chance to imagine a different life. $20 for 30 seconds of what if. Finnegan, I need to ask you something. Sure. If I won that lottery, really won it, what would you do? He laughed. Dad, the odds are like 20 million to 1. That's not what I asked. A longer pause. When he spoke again, his voice was careful. I'd be happy for you, of course, and I'd hope you'd be smart about it. Get financial advice. Make sure it was invested properly. Invested properly? By whom? Well, I have experience with financial planning. I hung up. The dial tone buzzed in my ear for a moment before I set the phone back in its cradle. The soup had stopped bubbling. The kitchen felt colder somehow, as if all the warmth had drained out through the phone line. I walked to the refrigerator and looked at the lottery ticket again. 7, 14, 23, 31, 42. Bonus 18. My family reduced to numbers on a piece of paper. Numbers that might mean nothing or might mean everything. 8 days passed before the lottery drawing. 8 days of screening my children's calls, of eating quiet dinners alone, of wondering when exactly I'd become nothing more than a bank account with legs to them. Thursday evening found me in my recliner, the TV remote balanced on my knee, flipping between channels with no real purpose. The house felt larger at night, shadows stretching from corners where Margaret's furniture used to sit. I'd sold most of it after she passed. Too many memories for one old man to carry alone. Channel 7 flickered to life just as the lottery music began. Jennifer Martinez, the local anchor who'd been drawing numbers for 15 years, smiled at the camera with her practiced warmth. Good evening, Ohio. Tonight's jackpot stands at $1 million. Let's see if we have a winner. I reached for my coffee cup and found it empty. The lottery ticket sat on my side table, tucked behind a photograph of Margaret holding baby Tatum. I'd moved it from the refrigerator after Finnegan's call, keeping it closer somehow. First number tonight is 7. My hand froze halfway to the coffee cup. Second number, 14. I picked up the ticket with fingers that suddenly felt clumsy. 7, 14, Margaret's birthday, Tatum's birthday. Third number is 23, Finnegan's birthday. I held the ticket closer to the lamp, comparing the printed numbers to the ones Jennifer Martinez was calling. This couldn't be happening. Fourth number, 31, Roderick's birthday. My heart hammered against my ribs like it was trying to escape. I read the ticket again, then again, certain I was making a mistake. Fifth number tonight is 42, our wedding anniversary. October 22nd, 1982. 42 years of marriage compressed into a single digit on a slip of paper that suddenly felt electric in my hands. And tonight's bonus number, 18, Ellis, my nephew's birthday. The boy I barely knew but loved anyway, the son of my brother who died too young. I'd added 18 on impulse 3 years ago, thinking families should stick together even on lottery tickets. Jennifer Martinez was saying something about checking numbers carefully, about claiming procedures, about how winners had 180 days to come forward, but her voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. I stood up too fast and nearly dropped the ticket. $1 million. I walked to the kitchen on unsteady legs and spread the ticket flat on the counter under the bright overhead light. 7, 14, 23, 31, 42, bonus 18. The numbers stared back at me, innocent as rainfall. I'd chosen these numbers because they meant family. Birthdays and anniversaries, the dates that marked our lives together. Margaret would have laughed at the irony. The family that had spent 2 days this week telling me I was stupid for buying lottery tickets had just made me a millionaire. 700,000 after taxes, according to the television. More money than I'd made in the last 10 years combined. More money than my father had seen in his entire life, working the coal mines in Kentucky. But as I stood there in my kitchen holding $1 million piece of paper, I wasn't thinking about money. I was thinking about Tatum grabbing this ticket from my pocket, calling my hope stupid. I was thinking about Finnegan's lecture about poor financial choices. I was thinking about how quickly they'd calculated what I owed them, but never what they owed me. The ticket felt heavier now, weighted with possibility and revenge in equal measure. I walked to my bedroom and opened the small safe where I kept Margaret's jewelry and our important papers. The lottery ticket slipped inside next to her wedding ring and the deed to the house. Before I closed the door, I looked at it one more time. Tomorrow, I would call my children. Tomorrow, I would invite them to dinner at the Rusty Anchor, our old family restaurant. And tomorrow, I would find out who they really were when they thought there was nothing left for them to gain. The safe door clicked shut, with a sound like a decision being made. Morning sunlight slanted through my bedroom window as I dialed the combination on Margaret's old jewelry safe. 3 turns right, 2 left, 1 right. The lottery ticket lay where I'd placed it 12 hours ago, next to her engagement ring and our marriage certificate. $1 million reduced to a slip of paper smaller than a business card. I spread my documents across the kitchen table like a general planning a campaign. Driver's license, social security card, the lottery claim form I'd printed from their website at 6 a.m. Everything needed to make this real, to transform those numbers into actual money sitting in my bank account. The drive to the post office took 15 minutes through Milford's quiet streets. Maple leaves carpeted the sidewalks in gold and crimson, and the morning air carried that sharp autumn bite that made everything feel possible. I parked between a rusted pickup truck and a soccer mom's SUV, then walked inside with my manila envelope tucked under one arm. Certified mail? The postal clerk, a woman about my age with graying hair and kind eyes, weighed my envelope on her digital scale. $8.50 with return receipt. That's fine. I handed her a $10 bill and watched her affix the green label that would track my lottery ticket's journey to Columbus. How long for delivery? 2 business days, usually. Important documents. You could say that. Back home, I sat at my kitchen table with the phone in front of me like a weapon I was preparing to use. 3 numbers written on a notepad, 3 children who needed to learn exactly what kind of people they really were. Tatum answered on the second ring, her voice sharp with morning irritation. Dad, I'm between clients. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, sweetheart. I wanted to invite you to dinner Saturday night. The whole family. A pause. Background noise from the salon. Hair dryers, conversation, the pop music they played to keep clients entertained. Dinner? At your house? The Rusty Anchor. My treat. If you're paying, then why not? Her tone shifted immediately, transactional warmth replacing annoyance. Can I bring the kids? Kayla has soccer practice at 4, but we could make it by 6. Bring them. I'll make reservations for 7 people. 7? Who else is coming? Your brothers. Finnegan's wife. A family gathering. She laughed, but it carried no humor. When's the last time we all had dinner together? Mom's funeral? The comment stung more than she probably intended. Margaret's funeral had been 2 years ago. And yes, that might have been the last time all my children sat at the same table. Saturday, 6 o'clock. Don't be late. I hung up before she could ask more questions and immediately dialed Finnegan's office number. Whitaker and Associates, his secretary's professional voice. Finnegan Whitaker, please. This is his father. A brief hold, then Finnegan's carefully modulated tone. Dad, everything all right? You never call the office. I'm calling to invite you to dinner Saturday. The Rusty Anchor, 6 o'clock. Family dinner. Silence stretched between us. I could almost hear him calculating angles, searching for hidden meanings. What's the occasion, Dad? This isn't like you. Can't a father invite his family to dinner? Of course, but, another pause. Is this about the lottery ticket thing? Are you trying to prove some point about family unity? The question revealed more about his mindset than he probably realized. Everything was a debate to be won, a point to be scored. I'm trying to have dinner with my children. Will you come or not? We'll be there. But, Dad, if this is some kind of intervention about your spending habits... 6 o'clock, Finnegan. Don't lecture me about my habits until you've paid off your own debts. I hung up harder than necessary and immediately dialed Roderick's number. It rang 5 times before his groggy voice answered. Yeah? It's your father. I'm inviting you to dinner Saturday night. Dinner? I heard him yawning, probably just waking up after working until 3 a.m. at the bar. What time? 6 o'clock. The Rusty Anchor. Sure, I could eat. That place has good steaks. Who's paying? There it was. The first question every one of my children asked when I offered anything. Not, how are you? Not, what's the occasion, but who's paying? I am, obviously. Cool. 6 o'clock Saturday. Got it. The line went dead without a goodbye. I sat back in my kitchen chair and looked at my notepad. 3 calls, 3 acceptances, 3 different ways of asking who would foot the bill. Not one of them had asked why I wanted to see them, how I was feeling, or what might be special about gathering the family together. Saturday would tell me everything I needed to know about the people I'd raised. Saturday evening arrived with autumn's early darkness settling over the Rusty Anchor's parking lot. I'd arrived first, as planned, and secured our usual round table in the back corner, where Margaret used to insist we sit for birthday dinners and anniversaries. The waitress, Linda, who'd been serving our family for 15 years, brought me coffee without being asked. Family dinner tonight, Mr. Whitaker? Haven't seen everyone together in a while. Something like that. I positioned myself with my back to the wall, where I could observe each arrival, each interaction, each telling detail about who my children really were. Tatum swept in at 6:15, her 2 children trailing behind like reluctant satellites. Kayla, 12, had earbuds in and never looked up from her phone. Mason, 9, immediately asked if the restaurant had Wi-Fi. Neither child acknowledged my existence until Tatum elbowed them. Say hello to Grandpa. Hi, they mumbled in unison, already scanning for empty chairs far from the adults. Finnegan and Sarah arrived precisely at 6:20, his punctuality as calculated as everything else in his life. Sarah offered a genuine smile and squeezed my shoulder. She was the only one who seemed happy to see me. Finnegan surveyed the table arrangement like a chess player calculating his next move. Roderick sauntered in at 6:35, hair still damp from a quick shower, wearing the same leather jacket he'd owned since college. He dropped into his chair with easy familiarity and immediately flagged Linda for a beer. Sorry I'm late. Traffic was murder. There hadn't been traffic in Milford on a Saturday night since the factory closed, but no one challenged the lie. Linda took our drink orders, and I watched my family settle into their familiar patterns. Tatum immediately opened her menu to the lowest-priced section. Finnegan studied the wine list like he was reviewing a financial prospectus. Roderick ordered the most expensive steak without looking at prices. So, Dad, Tatum began before we'd even ordered appetizers, about the kids' school expenses we discussed. Let's order first, I interrupted, but she pressed forward. Mason needs new soccer cleats, and Kayla's science project requires supplies I just can't afford right now. With the salon being slow and winter coming... Mom, can we get dessert? Kayla interjected without looking up from her screen. If Grandpa's paying, Tatum replied automatically. Finnegan cleared his throat with the authority of someone accustomed to commanding attention. Actually, Dad, Sarah and I have been discussing your financial situation. Those lottery tickets are throwing money away. I could double your savings in the stock market within 6 months. Here we go, Roderick muttered, taking a long pull from his beer. Investment advice from the guy who lost $7,000 on cryptocurrency. That was a calculated risk based on market research, Finnegan shot back, unlike gambling on lottery numbers. Trust me, I know about gambling, Roderick said with casual authority. I spent 3 years learning poker tells and probability calculations. The house always wins, Dad. Always. Sarah tried to mediate. Maybe we could just enjoy dinner without talking about Dad's poor decision making? Tatum's voice carried the edge of someone who'd been storing grievances for weeks. While he's buying lottery tickets, I'm choosing between groceries and gas money. Mason looked up from his tablet long enough to ask, "Can we go home now? This is boring." I sipped my coffee and watched them tear into my life choices with the efficiency of vultures picking clean a carcass. Every concern was financial. Every suggestion involved my money being redirected to their needs. Every criticism assumed I was too old, too foolish, too out of touch to manage my own affairs. The main courses arrived, and the conversation shifted to complaints about their jobs, their debts, their endless need for help that somehow always traced back to my wallet. Roderick mentioned rent troubles. Finnegan hinted at business expansion opportunities requiring capital. Tatum calculated aloud how much her children's Christmas would cost. Not once did anyone ask about my health, my loneliness, my memories of their mother. Not once did anyone thank me for the thousands of dollars I'd given them over the past year. They spoke about me like I was absent, debating my competence and my resources, as if I couldn't hear every word. When Linda brought the check, I pulled out my credit card with hands that felt steadier than they had in months. My children watched with the focused attention of auditors reviewing expense reports. "Thanks for dinner, Dad," Tatum said, already gathering her purse and children. "Think about what I said regarding the school expenses." "And my investment proposal," Finnegan added. "I'll send you some research materials." Roderick just nodded and headed for the door, probably late for his evening shift. I sat alone at the table after they'd all scattered to their cars, surrounded by empty plates and the lingering scent of Sarah's perfume. She'd been the only one to hug me goodbye. The restaurant continued its Saturday evening rhythm around me, other families laughing and talking, grandparents playing with grandchildren who actually acknowledged their existence. Linda approached with the coffee pot. "Refill, Mr. Whitaker?" "No thanks. I think I've learned everything I need to know tonight." Sunday morning brought clarity with the autumn sunrise streaming through my kitchen windows. Sunday morning brought clarity with the autumn sunrise streaming through my kitchen windows. I sat at my table with a fresh cup of coffee, a blank notebook, and the absolute certainty that my children had failed their first test without even knowing they were being evaluated. Last night's dinner had confirmed what Thursday's phone calls had suggested. My 3 children saw me as nothing more than a convenient bank account with occasional withdrawal privileges. The only emotions they'd displayed were frustration at my reluctance to hand over money and annoyance at having to ask for it indirectly. I opened the notebook to a clean page and wrote 3 names across the top: Tatum, Finnegan, Roderick. Below each name, I began designing tests that would give them one final chance to prove they deserved a single dollar of my lottery winnings. Tatum's test needed to target her self-centeredness, her assumption that my resources existed solely for her convenience. A health emergency would work, something serious enough to require immediate help, but manageable enough that a loving daughter would drop everything to assist. I wrote, Monday morning, 10 a.m. Heart palpitations, need ride to doctor. See if she'll leave salon during busy time. The beauty of this test lay in its authenticity. At 68, heart troubles were a legitimate concern. I'd experienced occasional irregular beats since Margaret's death, stress-related, according to my doctor, but Tatum wouldn't know that. A truly caring daughter would abandon paying customers to help her father reach medical care. A selfish daughter would suggest I call an ambulance or ask someone else. Finnegan's test required a different approach. His controlling nature and intellectual arrogance made him vulnerable to scenarios involving financial advice or decision-making. I wrote, Tuesday afternoon, 2 p.m., found old savings bonds worth $12,000. Ask for investment guidance. See if he tries to control money or offers genuine help. This test exploited his belief that he knew better than I did about everything financial. Would he offer honest guidance about the best options for an elderly man on a fixed income? Or would he immediately angle to manage the money himself, treating me like an incompetent child who couldn't be trusted with his own assets? Roderick's test focused on his irresponsibility and casual attitude toward other people's problems. I wrote, Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. Lost wallet with pension money at grocery store. Need help searching, filing police report. See if he helps or makes excuses. The timing was crucial. Wednesday was one of his work nights at the bar, when tips were traditionally good. A son who genuinely cared would sacrifice earning potential to help his father recover money essential for basic living expenses. A selfish son would suggest alternatives that didn't inconvenience his schedule. Each test was designed to seem urgent but manageable, serious but not catastrophic. More importantly, each test targeted the specific character flaw that had been most evident during our dinner last night. They would have opportunities to prove me wrong, to demonstrate the love and respect I'd hoped to see for 68 years. I made detailed notes about what constituted passing versus failing each test. Passing required immediate concern for my welfare, willingness to sacrifice their own convenience, and genuine care about my situation rather than calculations about what it might cost them. Failing meant prioritizing their own needs, suggesting alternatives that avoided personal inconvenience, or treating my problems as burdens they couldn't be bothered to shoulder. The coffee grew cold as I refined the details. Each test needed to feel authentic, desperate enough to require immediate response, but believable enough that they wouldn't suspect manipulation. My age and circumstances made all three scenarios plausible. Elderly people had medical emergencies, discovered forgotten financial instruments, and lost important items regularly. If all three children failed their tests, I would contact Ellis in 2 weeks. My nephew had called twice since Margaret's funeral, not asking for anything, just checking on my welfare. He lived 4 hours away and had his own life, but he'd shown more genuine concern for my happiness than my own children had displayed in years. The lottery ticket sat in my safe, representing $700,000 after taxes, enough money to change someone's life dramatically, to provide security and opportunity and freedom from financial worry. It deserved to go to someone who would appreciate its value, not just in monetary terms, but in terms of the love and sacrifice that had accumulated it over a lifetime of hard work. I closed the notebook and checked the kitchen clock. 9:30 a.m. Tatum would be preparing for her busiest day of the week, scheduling appointments and mixing hair chemicals and gossiping with clients about their weekend adventures. In 30 minutes, I would call her with chest pains and shortness of breath and discover whether I had raised a daughter or simply funded the upbringing of a stranger who happened to share my DNA. The phone felt heavier than usual as I picked it up and dialed her salon number. Time to begin the final examination of my family's character. Monday morning arrived with the weight of resolution. I sat at my kitchen table, notebook open to the first test, my hand hovering over the phone like a surgeon preparing for a delicate operation. The numbers on the lottery ticket, now memorized, seemed to mock me from their hiding place in the safe. $1 million waiting for someone worthy of receiving it. At exactly 10:30, I dialed Tatum's salon. Glamour touch, this is Tatum. Her voice carried the busy efficiency of someone juggling multiple clients. Tatum, honey. I let my voice crack slightly, adding a wheeze that wasn't entirely artificial. I need help, having chest pains and shortness of breath. Background noise flooded through the phone, hair dryers humming, a client asking about processing time, the pop music they played to keep the atmosphere light, everything that mattered more to my daughter than her father's health. Dad? Her tone shifted to mild concern, but I could hear her moving, probably checking a timer on someone's highlights. What kind of chest pains? Sharp ones, right here. I pressed my free hand against my chest, letting the gesture inform my voice. Dr. Peterson wants me in Columbus immediately. Heart specialist. Columbus? Dad, that's like an hour drive. Can't you see someone local? The question revealed everything I needed to know about her priorities, but I pressed forward with the script. Peterson says it's urgent. Could be serious. Problem is, I can't drive feeling this way. Need $30 for taxi fare. A pause. Hairdryer noise grew louder, then softer as she moved around the salon. Dad, I'm right in the middle of Mrs. Henderson's color. She's getting highlights for her daughter's wedding, and if I mess up the timing... Tatum, I might be having a heart attack. Can't Finnegan take you? Or call an ambulance? Each suggestion hit like a physical blow. Your father is having a medical emergency, and your first instinct is to find someone else to handle it. I gripped the phone tighter, maintaining the breathless tone. Finnegan's at work. Ambulance costs $300. I just need 30 for a cab. Dad, I really can't leave right now. Mrs. Henderson is our biggest tipper, and she specifically requested me. Maybe you could... She stopped mid-sentence, and I heard her talking to someone else. Yes, Mrs. Henderson. Another 10 minutes on the timer. When she returned to our conversation, her voice carried a different energy. Actually, since we're talking, could you lend me $80? There's this dress at Macy's for the salon's anniversary party next week. All the other girls are wearing designer, and I can't show up looking cheap. The silence stretched between us while her words sank in. Her father calls with chest pains, needing $30 for medical transportation, and she counters by asking for $80 for a dress. The test couldn't have been more conclusive if I'd designed it as a psychology experiment. Dad, are you there? The dress is on sale, but only until tonight. I'm here. My voice had gone flat, the performed breathlessness replaced by genuine emptiness. So can you transfer the money? I've got Mrs. Henderson under the dryer, but I could run to the mall after work. I looked down at my notebook, pen poised over the space marked Test 1 Tatum. The results were clear. When faced with her father's medical emergency, she'd prioritized hair appointments and dress shopping. When asked for $30 to potentially save my life, she'd requested $80 for vanity. Dad, the connection is breaking up. I'll figure something out, I said quietly. Great. About the dress money. I hung up. The kitchen felt colder somehow, as if Tatum's selfishness had leaked through the phone lines and poisoned the air. I picked up my pen and wrote carefully. Test 1 failed. Prioritize client appointments and personal shopping over father's potential heart attack. Outside, autumn leaves drifted past my window like the remnants of everything I'd believed about my family. 1 test down, 2 to go. But I already knew what the results would be. Tuesday afternoon brought the second test, and with it, the systematic destruction of any remaining illusions about the people I'd raised. Tuesday afternoon brought the second test, and with it, the systematic destruction of any remaining illusions about the people I'd raised. I spread old bank statements and investment papers across my desk, creating the perfect backdrop for confusion about modern financial options. At 4:20, I called Finnegan's office. TechFlow Solutions, Finnegan speaking. His voice carried the crisp professionalism of someone comfortable with authority. Son, I'm confused about all these investment options. I let uncertainty color my words, playing the befuddled elderly man perfectly. Could use your expertise. Of course, Dad. What's going on? I heard keyboard clicking in the background, the subtle multitasking of someone accustomed to handling multiple priorities simultaneously. I have some savings sitting in a basic account, earning nothing. Interest rates are terrible. All these commercials about cryptocurrency and stocks. I trailed off, the perfect picture of an overwhelmed senior citizen. The keyboard clicking stopped. How much are we talking about, Dad? Not, what are your financial goals? Not, what's your risk tolerance? But, how much money? The question every greedy advisor asks first. Well, I've been careful over the years. Saved a bit here and there. I kept it deliberately vague, watching how his interest would escalate with perceived opportunity. Dad, I need specifics to help you properly. Are we talking thousands? 10,000? More? Possibly more. I could practically hear his mental calculator spinning. That's why I need advice. These investment websites are confusing. Listen, Dad. His voice shifted to lecture mode, the tone he used when explaining technology to people he considered intellectually inferior. Basic savings accounts are financial suicide. Inflation eats away at your purchasing power daily. I know, son. That's why I called you. Here's what we'll do. Give me control of the account, and I'll move everything into a diversified cryptocurrency portfolio. I could triple your money in 6 months. There it was. Not education, not guidance, but an immediate power grab. The same controlling instinct that had driven him to lecture me about lottery tickets was now focused on controlling assets he'd just learned existed. Control of the account? I let confusion creep into my voice. I thought you'd just give me advice. Dad, you don't understand modern investing. It requires constant monitoring, split-second decisions. You can't expect to manage complex financial instruments at your age. At my age, as if turning 68 had automatically deleted decades of financial responsibility, as if the man who'd managed a household budget for 40 years was suddenly incompetent to make his own decisions. I could set up automatic transfers, he continued, his voice gaining momentum with each word. Power of attorney for investment decisions. You'd still have access to spending money, but the real assets would be properly managed. Properly managed by you. By someone who understands markets. Dad, you waste $20 a month on those ridiculous lottery tickets. That alone shows you need professional guidance. The lottery comment stung particularly sharply, considering those ridiculous lottery tickets had just made me wealthy beyond his imagining. I gripped the phone tighter, maintaining my confused elderly act, while rage built behind my careful facade. So you'd control my money completely? For your own good. Trust me, Dad. In 5 years, you'll thank me when your portfolio has grown exponentially. I looked down at my notebook, already knowing what I'd be writing. Test 2, designed to measure whether my son would help or manipulate, had revealed exactly what I'd suspected. Given the opportunity to educate his father about investing, Finnegan had immediately attempted to seize control of my assets. I need to think about this, I said slowly. Don't think too long. Market opportunities don't wait for indecision. Even his final comment was pressure, the classic sales technique of artificial urgency designed to prevent careful consideration. I'll call you back, I said, and hung up before he could apply more pressure. I opened my notebook and wrote, Test 2, failed. Attempted to gain control of father's assets under guise of financial expertise. Immediate manipulation, no genuine education offered. 2 tests completed, 2 failures documented, 1 test remaining. Wednesday evening would bring the final confirmation of what I already knew. None of my children deserved a penny of my lottery winnings. Wednesday evening settled over Milford with the promise of final answers. I sat in my living room, the television murmuring local news at low volume, while I prepared for the last test. My notebook lay open beside me, 2 failed tests already documented in my careful handwriting. At 9:45, I dialed Murphy's Pub. The phone rang 3 times before Roderick's voice cut through background noise, glasses clinking, sports commentary from the TV, the steady hum of Wednesday night regulars. Murphy's, this is Roderick. Son, I'm in trouble. I let genuine worry seep into my voice. Lost my wallet in Riverside Park today. Lost your wallet? I heard him moving, probably wiping down the bar while juggling the phone. That sucks, Dad. Cancel your credit cards yet? Don't have credit cards, but I had this week's pension money in there. $150. Bank can't replace the check until Monday. A pause. In the background, someone called for 2 beers and a whiskey. Hold on, Dad. I listened to him serving customers, the familiar ritual of drinks poured and money exchanged. When he returned, his voice carried a different tone. Sorry about that. Wednesdays are busy. Another pause. Dad, I'd help you out, but I lost big at poker last night. Down $300. $300. He'd gambled away twice what I needed, then admitted it without shame or apology. The irony was staggering, my son with a gambling addiction refusing to help his father because of gambling losses. 300? I let shock color my words. Roderick, you said you'd stop playing poker. I mostly have. This was just one bad night. Card games happen, you know. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And last night you lost my week's grocery money. Come on, Dad, don't guilt-trip me. His voice turned defensive, the tone of someone accustomed to deflecting responsibility. Could you sell those old tools in the garage? They're worth something. My tools, the wrenches and saws and hammers I'd collected over 30 years of fixing everything that broke in our house. He wanted me to sell the instruments of my life's work to replace money he'd thrown away at a poker table. Roderick, I need help, not suggestions for how to help myself. I know, but I'm tapped out right now. Someone called his name from across the bar. Listen, maybe you finally won something on those lottery tickets. Huh? The comment hit like a physical blow. There I sat, holding $1 million lottery ticket, listening to my gambling-addicted son mock my lottery habit, while refusing to help me recover pension money. The cosmic joke was almost too perfect to believe. The lottery tickets are a waste, he continued, echoing his siblings' constant criticism. But hey, maybe tonight's your lucky night. If only he knew. If only any of them knew that their foolish father had already achieved what they considered impossible. But their ignorance was revealing. Even faced with my emergency, Roderick's first instinct was to deflect responsibility and suggest alternatives that didn't inconvenience him. So you can't help? I asked quietly. Dad, if I had it, you know I'd give it to you. But 300 down is 300 down. I'm barely covering rent this month. Barely covering rent because he'd gambled away his income. The pattern was clear. Irresponsibility leading to financial crisis, then requesting help from the father he considered foolish for buying lottery tickets. I understand, I said, though understanding and accepting were entirely different things. Maybe hit up Finnegan. He's got that IT money. Pass the responsibility to someone else. Never accept accountability for your own choices. Never sacrifice for family when sacrifice might be inconvenient. I'll figure something out, I said. Sorry, Dad. Really. If my luck changes tonight, I'll call you. He hung up to serve another customer, returning to his evening of earning money he'd likely lose in the next poker game. I closed my notebook slowly, the final test complete. 3 children, 3 opportunities to demonstrate love over self-interest. 3 spectacular failures. Each test had been designed to require minimal sacrifice. $30, honest advice, or a borrowed $150. None of them had passed. But I knew someone who would. Ellis's phone number sat at the bottom of my contact list, added 2 years ago after Margaret's funeral. Tomorrow, I would call my nephew and discover what real family loyalty looked like. Thursday evening settled over my empty house like a shroud. I sat in my recliner, the notebook containing 3 documented failures closed on my lap, staring at the fireplace where Margaret and I used to sit on autumn nights like this. The silence felt heavier than usual, weighted with the knowledge that I had raised 3 strangers who happened to share my blood. The phone rang at 7:30, cutting through my melancholy like an unexpected lifeline. Uncle Harlan! Ellis's voice carried warmth I hadn't heard from family in weeks. The enthusiasm in those 2 words made something tighten in my chest. Ellis, son, good to hear from you. Mom mentioned some family stress when I called her last weekend. She said Tatum and the guys have been, demanding lately. You doing okay? I pressed the phone closer to my ear, struck by the genuine concern in his voice. When had any of my children asked if I was okay without first establishing what they needed from me? I'm managing. You know how it is with family. I do know, actually. That's why I'm calling. Papers rustled in the background, probably grading assignments. Uncle Harlan, you've always been too generous with everyone. Sometimes people take advantage of that. Take advantage. The phrase hit exactly where it needed to. 3 failed tests had proven that's precisely what my children had been doing for years. You might be right about that, Ellis. Look, I know it's not my place, and I'm way down here in Toledo. But if you need anything, money, help around the house, just company, I'm here. I could drive up this weekend. I stared at the closed notebook, then at the phone in my hand. Ellis was offering help without being asked, without knowing if there was anything in it for him, without calculating what it might cost him. Everything my own children had failed to do. That's very kind of you, son. It's not kindness, it's family. Real family. His voice carried conviction that reminded me of his father, my brother Tom. Uncle Harlan, I've always looked up to you. After Dad died, you were the one who made sure I had what I needed for college. Remember that? I did remember. $2,000 for Ellis's textbooks and dorm expenses, given without hesitation when Tom's insurance didn't cover everything. Ellis had written thank you letters for months afterward, updating me on his grades, his teaching aspirations, his gratitude for the opportunity. You paid that back, Ellis, every penny. Because you taught me that debts matter, that responsibility matters. But more than that, you showed me what love looks like. He paused, and I heard him moving around his apartment. I'm sorry my cousins don't see that. My cousins. Not his siblings, not his family. He understood the distinction between blood relatives and chosen family better than the children I'd raised. Ellis, you've always been special. Your father would be proud of the man you've become. I learned from good examples. You and Dad, mostly you after he passed. Another pause. Uncle Harlan, I'm serious about helping. Whatever you need, whenever you need it. No questions asked. No questions asked. The complete opposite of every interaction I'd had with my children in recent memory. They asked questions constantly. How much? When? What would I get in return? Why couldn't I handle it myself? I appreciate that more than you know. Family takes care of family. That's what you taught me. After we hung up, I sat in my recliner for a long time, holding the phone and thinking about the conversation. Ellis had called not because he needed something, but because he'd heard I might. He'd offered help without conditions, asked about my welfare without calculations, and expressed genuine gratitude for past kindness instead of entitlement to future support. I opened my notebook and turned to a fresh page. At the top, I wrote, Ellis Whitaker, True Family. Below that, I began planning how to ensure that real loyalty would be rewarded. The lottery ticket in my safe wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to someone who understood what family actually meant. A week later, I drove toward Columbus with documents that would change everything. A week later, I drove toward Columbus with documents that would change everything. The October morning carried the crisp promise of autumn's peak, golden sunlight slanting through my windshield as I navigated downtown traffic toward the Ohio Lottery Commission building. I parked in the government lot and walked through security with my manila envelope tucked under one arm like a businessman carrying contracts. The guard directed me to the third floor, where a receptionist with kind eyes and a professional smile verified my appointment. Mr. Whitaker, congratulations. Ms. Rodriguez will handle your claim. Maria Rodriguez looked about Finnegan's age, wearing a navy suit and the competent demeanor of someone who processed life-changing moments as part of her daily routine. Her office walls displayed framed lottery winner photos, ordinary people holding oversized checks, their faces bright with disbelief and joy. Please have a seat. Let's verify your winning ticket. I handed her the slip of paper that had caused so much family turmoil. She scanned it under a special light, checked the numbers against her computer system, and nodded with satisfaction. Confirmed. $1 million jackpot, October 10th drawing. You have the winning ticket. She looked up with genuine warmth. How does it feel to be a millionaire, Mr. Whitaker? Like justice, I said, then caught myself. I mean, surprising. Very surprising. She smiled and began explaining the process. Federal taxes would take 37%, state taxes 4%, leaving me with approximately $700,000. I could choose annual payments over 20 years or a lump sum. The choice was simple. Lump sum, please. I have specific plans for this money. Excellent. Let me prepare the paperwork. For the next 45 minutes, I signed forms, provided identification, answered questions about tax withholding and bank deposits. Ms. Rodriguez explained winner services, media policies, and financial advisor recommendations. Everything felt surreal, bureaucratic procedures transforming abstract numbers into concrete wealth. Your check for $700,000, Mr. Whitaker. She handed me a piece of paper that weighed nothing but represented everything. Congratulations again. Any immediate plans for your winnings? Taking care of family, I said, the family that deserves it. I drove to Riverside Park afterward, finding a quiet bench overlooking the Scioto River. The check felt substantial in my hands despite its lightness. $700,000. More money than I'd earned in the last 15 years combined. But the amount wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the justice it represented. Ellis would receive $500,000 in the house, enough to secure his future, pay off any teaching-related debts, maybe pursue graduate school or travel during summers. Money that would go to someone who demonstrated genuine care without expectation of reward. The remaining $200,000 would cover my living expenses for whatever years remained. I'd never need to ask my children for anything again. More importantly, they'd never have the opportunity to treat my financial needs as inconveniences, to be avoided or manipulated for their own gain. Autumn leaves drifted past my bench, carried by gentle river breezes that smelled of change and possibility. Tomorrow I would call my children one final time, inviting them to dinner for a conversation that would reshape our family forever. They would learn that actions have consequences, that love has value, and that the father they'd dismissed as foolish had been wiser than they'd ever imagined. I folded the check carefully and placed it in my wallet next to Ellis's phone number. Tomorrow would bring the reckoning they'd earned through their own choices. Saturday evening brought me back to the Rusty Anchor for the final act of this family drama. I sat in my car in the parking lot, checking the lottery documents one last time. The winning ticket, the official claim verification, and the folded check that would change everything. Linda seated us at the same table as before, the cosmic irony not lost on me. Tatum arrived with her children, Finnegan with Sarah, Roderick punctual for once. They settled into familiar patterns, Tatum studying the cheaper menu options, Finnegan analyzing the wine list, Roderick ordering premium steak without checking prices. "So what's the occasion this time, Dad?" Finnegan asked after we'd ordered. "2 family dinners in 2 weeks seems unlike you." "Just wanted to see everyone," I replied, cutting my chicken with deliberate precision. The conversation flowed along predictable channels. Tatum mentioned the kids' upcoming expenses. Finnegan hinted at investment opportunities. Roderick complained about slow tip nights. None of them asked about my health, my loneliness, or how I'd been spending my days since our last dinner. When Linda brought dessert, apple pie for the grandchildren, coffee for the adults, I knew the moment had arrived. "I have something to tell you all." I set down my coffee cup with steady hands. "I won the lottery 2 weeks ago." Silence. Complete, absolute silence. Even the grandchildren looked up from their phones. "Won what lottery?" Tatum's voice carried the skeptical tone of someone accustomed to disappointment. I reached into my jacket and placed the winning ticket on the table. $1 million. October 10th, drawing. Here's the ticket. Finnegan grabbed it first, studying the numbers with the intense focus of someone calculating angles. These are the numbers you always play. Family birthdays. Your mother's, yours, your siblings. Ellis's too. $1 million? Roderick's voice cracked slightly. "Dad, are you serious?" I pulled out the lottery commission verification and the check, spreading them across the table like evidence in a trial. 700,000 after taxes. Right here. The transformation was immediate and predictable. Tatum's eyes filled with tears, not of joy for my good fortune, but of desperate calculation. Finnegan leaned forward with the aggressive posture of someone preparing to take charge. Roderick stared at the check with the focused attention of a gambler seeing his salvation. "Dad, this is incredible!" Tatum reached across the table as if to touch the documents. "We need to be smart about this. The kids' college funds, my mortgage." "Actually," Finnegan interrupted, "the priority should be proper investment strategy. Dad, you'll need professional financial management." "Hold on," I said quietly, and something in my tone made them both stop talking. "Before anyone starts planning how to spend my money, let me tell you about the past 2 weeks." I looked at each of them in turn. "I tested you. All 3 of you." Confusion flickered across their faces. Tatum, Monday the 14th. I called with chest pains, needed $30 for a taxi to see a heart specialist. You were too busy with highlights to help, but you asked me for $80 for a dress. Her face went pale. "Dad, Finnegan, Tuesday the 15th. I asked for investment advice about some savings. Instead of helping, you immediately tried to take control of my money. That was professional guidance." Roderick, Wednesday the 16th. I lost my wallet with pension money. You couldn't help because you'd lost $300 gambling. Roderick's mouth opened, then closed without sound. Each of you failed a simple test. When your father needed help, you prioritized your own interests. When I asked for small amounts, you either refused or tried to manipulate the situation for your own benefit. The restaurant continued its Saturday evening rhythm around us, other families enjoying normal dinners, while ours imploded with the force of accumulated truth. "But Ellis," I continued, and watched their faces change at the mention of their cousin. "Ellis called Thursday evening, no agenda, no requests, just checking on my welfare because he'd heard about family stress. He offered help without being asked. Money, time, company, whatever I needed. So?" Tatum's voice turned sharp with desperation. He's not even your son. No, but he understands what family means. Real family. I stood up slowly. My decision crystallized into action. Ellis will receive $500,000 and the house. He's earned it through genuine care and respect. The explosion was immediate. Tatum began crying. Real tears this time, mixed with rage and desperation. Finnegan started calculating legal challenges, his voice rising with indignation about unfairness and manipulation. Roderick just stared at the table, understanding finally settling over his features like a slow-moving storm. Dad, you can't be serious, Tatum sobbed. We're your children. Children who treated me like a bank account with legs. Children who criticized my lottery tickets while planning how to spend my winnings. I pulled out my wallet and placed exact change on the table for my portion of the dinner. Ellis never asked for anything. That's why he deserves everything. Sarah, who had remained silent throughout the revelation, touched my arm gently. Mr. Whitaker, I understand you're hurt, but maybe... Sarah, you're a good woman. I'm sorry you're married to someone who sees his father as a financial resource instead of a person. I walked toward the restaurant exit without looking back, their voices rising behind me in a chorus of protests, accusations, and desperate bargaining. The autumn air felt clean after the suffocating atmosphere of family disappointment. In my car, I pulled out my phone and scrolled to Ellis's number. Time to call my real heir and share news that would change his life forever. Justice, it turned out, felt exactly like walking away from people who'd never deserved your love in the first place. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.